laying the ground for future travel. The CEO of South African Tourism, Sisa Ntshona, has revealed some of the country's proposed tourism measures to minimize the spread of COVID-19. Ntshona said that health and safety will be a priority for travelers, whether they visit a local park, attend business travel, or board a flight or stay at a hotel. Sisa Ntshona joins us now to elaborate on this. Lovely talking to you once again, Sisa. First of all, just your sentiments as South African tourism on the partial reopening. I mean, you are experiencing a phased-in reopening. Is it slow enough?
Well, good evening, Tammy. Good evening to your viewers. Absolutely. We want to open up tourism, but we want to open it up only when it is safe. And part of that process is about easing up the opening up of the sector. So as you know right now is that domestic travel is allowed, but only for business travel. And then the next phase will be leisure travel as well. So it's got to make sure that we are prioritizing people's health and also the welfare of the environment as we start to open up the sector as well.
What you have done is put together some measures and some advisory notes on how best to do this. Take us through some of those.
Well, we are all in a new era of, living with the COVID virus in itself. And as I said earlier on, it's all about the safety of the travelers. So before we actually start to promote people to travel within the country, we've got to make sure that certain measures have been put in place. These are health protocols. Essentially when you check in to an establishment like a hotel or a lodge or whatever it is, to make sure that across the entire process value chain, that the health measures have actually been looked at. And this will apply whether you're going to a hotel, whether you're going to a park or a museum as well. It is essentially important to make sure that, we don't spread the coronavirus, through the interaction or the execution, rather, of tourism.
Some of the measures that you've advocated for are health and safety officers as well as team leaders in places where guests are required. Talk to us more about that and who those health and safety officers should be and exactly where they should be stationed.
Sure. Well, it's all about accountability and making sure that at each establishment there is someone responsible and chiefly tasked with the assignment of making sure that all of these health protocols have been put in place. It's essentially an occupational health and safety officer that can either be the GM of the hotel, and this function becomes an added extension of what they do. And again, all of this is to make sure that as far as humanly possible, that tourism can be consumed in the most health-conscious way.
And what would you say, Sisa, have been some of the lockdown lessons that the tourism sector can take from this particular period?
Oh, definitely. I think these have been worldwide, and they range from agility, that you've got to plan for the unknown. The use of technology is really going to be heightened in this environment, and essentially as little or as reduced contact as possible in order to practice the social distancing. So you almost got to imagine, hotels without a lobby, as an example, that you can self-check-in from your home and tap your phone to open the door in your hotel. You've got to imagine as well where, buffets are things of the past, but rather plated meals that you can order up front. And I think these are the adjustments that we all have to make in order to make sure that, we can open up tourism safely. And we're also watching around the world as well, as economies, as different countries open up as well. We are all getting different data points that essentially help us as a country to make sure that people's safety is really enhanced all the time.
One of the areas that you focus on in the particular protocols and standards that have been put together for tourism moving forward is the reintegration or the re-invitation of foreigners into South Africa or visitors coming outside of South Africa's shores. But these surely still pose a threat and are a risk for COVID-19, especially during this particular time when South Africa is yet to reach its peak.
Yeah, so I spoke earlier on about opening up the sector slowly and easing it out. And the recovery of the sector is going to be led inside out, So domestic will start first, then regional, then only international. And essentially to make sure that, we minimize the impact of potentially importing people with the virus into the country. And if you look across the world, even some economies that are slightly ahead of us are also now in their regional space, where they're essentially looking at their neighbors around them, either within driving distance or probably maximum a 1 hour flight away. We call them air bubbles that are starting to develop, especially in Europe, which we are observing. So therefore, that becomes the stage that we actually open it out. But, for the foreseeable future, we have to take care of ourselves as a country. Our borders will probably remain up until we are confident that when we open them up again, that we are not bringing in risk that we have taken such a long time to get over.
Now, the restaurant business, Sisa, is an integral part of travel and tourism, and it hasn't yet been opened. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it should be reopened as well?
Well, look, if you're opening up tourism, especially the leisure side, there's a lot of complementary activities that go with it. Definitely restaurants is one of them. At the moment as well, restaurants have also been eased in slowly, where initially it was only takeaways and no one could pick up. Now you can actually go and pick up at the premises. The next stage now will be actually allowing sit down. And those will also come with certain conditions around proximity, social distancing, and in terms of allowing that in. So you've got to look at this as almost drip feeding, opening the tap. And with each stage that you open it up, you gain more confidence as well that you are able to manage the pandemic and not necessarily just go for a full hog and then, create a bigger crisis further down the line. But as I said earlier on, there are, complementary activities that go ahead with leisure tourism. One of them, for instance, becomes provincial borders. You can't open up leisure tourism if the provincial borders are still up. So you've got to take those down as well. So there are those considerations that have to go at the back end of that to make sure that, when you announce opening up a leisure tourism, that again, the complementary activities also come along with it.
And obviously, we're also speaking about hotels, which are currently only able and allowed to take guests who are coming into town for business purposes. How long can the hotel industry specifically hold on for? They are part of the sectors that have really suffered a huge blow, or one of your subsectors that has suffered a huge blow.
Absolutely. With every week that goes by and the sector is not fully opened up, it remains a lot of pressure on the supply side. Trade is literally under pressure. So therefore, the ultimate solution would be open up the entire sector. That's when international travel is allowed. That's how you can support the sector the most. But as I said earlier on, we are on the path to ultimately opening it up to international. But we have to be cognizant of the risk that comes with it, with each and every single stage that comes through. And you have to gain confidence. Now, if South Africa rushes and opens up and has not managed this pandemic, has not flattened the curve, it does not give confidence to our international visitors that, they can come and visit South Africa, because we will not have done the right things. And I think, so therefore, opening it up slowly is about us making sure as a country that we have it under control, but also sending the right signals internationally that, we are a safe destination and that one that can be explored by international visitors.
There's an interesting point that you make in your article. You talk about a traveler of the future. Tell us about that traveler, as well as the ways and means that you as an industry are preparing to cater for their specific and reformed needs.
Yeah, that's a very interesting concept. It's the traveler of the future, which, by the way, the traveler of the future does not know what they want themselves, but is constantly forming all the time. It is about opinions that you see all the time, and first and foremost will be about safety. People want to travel. There's a lot of pent-up demand that's sitting in there, but you want to make sure that it is safe. Secondly, as well, it's about authentic travel, immersion, interaction and activity. Now, what COVID has done, it has actually highlighted, rather profiled the smaller establishment, the more rural establishment, the space where, relatively there isn't a compressed environment. And so we'll be doing a very close analysis on a weekly basis to make sure that we understand what the modern day or with COVID traveler is looking for, so that as a country we're able to serve it back to you, whether you are taking a short left domestically or coming from the continent itself regionally or even internationally. We want to make sure that we understand what you're looking for, and as a country presents ourselves as being able to fulfill that demand, what is it you're looking for. But it's a constantly changing kind of phenomenon, because it's all new to all of us. So we have to listen very closely and make sure that we can respond accordingly.
I mean, I might imagine that a part of the work that you need to do as South African tourism is to almost get into the minds of future travelers, and there might be a change as well in appetites and choices of destination. I'm thinking, for example, of a place like the Western Cape, like Cape Town, which has really enjoyed the privilege of being a premier tourist destination for those coming outside of the country as well as those who are traveling domestically. Because of the influx and the high numbers of COVID-19 in that particular province, do you see people's attitudes towards places like Cape Town changing even after the virus? Is there some sort of a travel stigma, one might call it, that might be attached to places like that?
So the President spoke about reimagining a new economy post-COVID. And similarly within tourism, we also have to look at what this opportunity that COVID has done. It has essentially pressed a reset button. And what that basically means is that it's given us the opportunity to actually shine the spotlight on other areas of the country that actually offer, different, unique activities, etc., from that side. But that is not to say that in shining the light on new activities that you actually do away with the old. It needs to be progressive. It needs to be and. That you are able to come, to the iconic destinations such as Cape Town, where there's a wide lands, Table Mountain, the view, the ocean, etc. But there's also other areas of the country. Almost like an onion, you are peeling it off one layer at a time. We want to make sure that the repeater visitor actually comes and goes up quite high. So therefore, right now, it's about shining the light on areas such as the Northern Cape, as an example, which is very low prevalence of COVID, and making sure that, as the largest province in the country, people are able to go to self-drives, they're able to have activities there that actually promote social distancing without, again, putting a stigma of what's been working for us as a country. So it becomes and not either or.